All right. So I'm really excited to share that we have Bridget Anderson with us today. Bridget is the director of Patronicity, a crowdfunding platform designed to support creative placemaking projects around the country. Anderson leads the Creating Places crowd granting program in Indiana. It's powerful work that empowers hyper-local community development and investment. The Patronicity team also works to stabilize and support small businesses, and Bridget is the lead consultant and community advocate for Bench Consulting, developing a roadmap to recovery. Bridget has over 6 years working with statewide and national nonprofits, including civil justice and educational organizations, as well as 6 years serving elected officials and political campaigns. She graduated from Indiana University with a degree in political science and is inspired by civic engagement as a means to improve lives. Thank you so much, Bridget, for being here today. We also, following Bridget's presentation, we have joining us Evie Kirkwood and Bonnie Hawksworth. You may all already know Evie and Bonnie, but Bonnie is the Director of Community Engagement for Shirley Hines Land Trust, who participated in the Creating Places program. And Evie recently retired, or I guess maybe not that recently now, but many of you know her because she had a very long and distinguished career as the Executive Director of the St. Joseph County Park. So thank you all for being here and sharing all of the great things and your experiences with this program.
Well, thank you, Andrea. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that Bonnie and Evie are here to talk about their exact experience with our program, because sometimes the best advocates are the folks who are doing this work on the ground. And so I'm going to just hit you with the quick and dirty, which is basically the program requirements. So how much money do you need? What kind of projects we're looking to fund. And then the bulk of my conversation is going to be sharing a crowdfunding. How does crowdfunding work, and why is it such a kind of critical part of planning your community development, or in a lot of cases, just beautification and vibrancy projects. So I'm going to share my screen. And I have a couple of prompts on here that are just really designed to get you thinking. So there are going to be a couple slides that just have a series of questions that just is designed, again, to get folks thinking. So I might move through those rather quickly, but I'll certainly share my presentation afterwards. So what is Creating Places? Well, it's this innovative partnership between us, our team at Patronicity. We were founded in Detroit in 2013, and we saw this opportunity to harness the power of crowdfunding, specifically to support creative placemaking projects, because we believe individuals in their communities should be patrons, and patrons decide where their money should be invested. And through our work in supporting projects throughout the country, we developed these powerful partnerships. In Indiana, this partnership is called Creating Places, and our grant partner is the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority, or IHCDA for short. And the reason IHCDA, which is a state agency, wanted to partner with us at Patronicity is they knew that in investing in community development projects, they needed the community to be engaged, and they wanted to maximize their investment. So they provide this powerful matching grant, which is a really great incentive for individuals to donate, but also helps dollars go further in your community. So I want to point out this picture. This picture is from one of a project in Bedford. It's called the Bedford Community Garden. And so they utilized our platform to raise funds. They got matching grants from IHCDA. And this image is from their volunteer day, where they had volunteers come out and plant projects. So Creating Places really is focused on creative placemaking. But what is creative placemaking? The great thing about these grant funds is they come from a smokeless tobacco tax, which seems super random, but it allows a ton of flexibility because the IHCDA Board of Directors approves them through their pot of funds rather than going through the full state budget process, which, as you probably know, is can be long and arduous. And so when we talk about the program, we talk about transforming vacant or unused space into something is usable. And so we do want communities and different organizations around the state to identify those assets and figure out a way to develop them. And it leaves a lot of room, which can sometimes be overwhelming. So we have some guidelines that help you focus. First, again, it's transforming vacant or unused space. You have to be a 501c3, 501c4, or local unit of government. It can also be a partnership, and you can also have a fiscal sponsor. So in the case of the River Ramble, if you have a parks foundation, or if you have a city park that wants to collaborate too, you can do those kinds of things. We're talking about a maximum of $100,000. So the organization or community will raise between 5 and 50, and then IHCDA will match that, but only if you meet your goal amount. And we can dive into, I have a whole section on budget, so don't get overwhelmed by that, because that can feel overwhelming. The project can't be located in a floodway. We have a little room for this, depending on what the project is, but it's something to consider as you're deciding where to have your project. We can work with DNR to get approval. This picture right here is from the Arcadia splash pad. I just love that it's located in their downtown. So many splash pads are kind of on the edge of towns or in suburbs, but you really see, especially in a small community, what this kind of space transformation looks like. Oops. I went backwards instead of forwards there. So the other criteria to point out is the timeline. You have a year to complete the project from the date that you receive funds. So that sounds like not a lot of time. It's not designed to be punitive. We don't want to rush your process. And we can grant extensions if need be, but it's really designed because you're asking community to support your project. So your community is going to hold you more accountable than we are, because somebody who gave you $100 to plant that tree is going to be like, where's my tree at? The other thing, we really see projects from all across the state, from communities of varying size. We've had communities as small as 130 residents in Yeoman to the city of Indianapolis use the platform and apply for the grant. We do want the spaces to be welcoming and free to the public. So the free angle can be particularly challenging if you're trying to create a new space, because you need to kind of pay for the ongoing maintenance and things like that. So we do allow for specific times for a space to be free. It doesn't have to be free to the public 24/7, but we do want to share that. And then also a new process that we recently added is if you're trying to beautify or enhance a project in a historic district or on the National Historic Registry, we'll work with you to get approval from the State Historic Preservation Office. So, oh my gosh, I keep going the wrong direction. Oh, I did not even point out, this image is of the beautiful River Ramble. This was this summer. It was a beautiful, very hot, sunny day. And this water pump that is designed so smartly to teach young people about the flow of water, because it's adjacent to the beautiful river, was jam-packed with kids playing, and just, you could tell they were learning, but having so much fun playing with the water. I'm a huge fan of this project and the Leidich project, which we'll be sharing, but the idea that our land and our spaces have so much value is something that I think Hoosiers need to kind of reframe their brain around. And so when I see projects like Leidich that says we have this resource, it's valuable, we need to invest in it and make it accessible. And it's the same kind of concept with the River Ramble. How do we empower young people to be engaged in our natural resources? So here are some examples of project types. Project types are just some ideas to get you thinking. Because our funding allows us a lot of freedom, we have an opportunity to create something new that no one's ever seen before. We'll hear out your harebrained idea. If you have like an idea for like, I don't know, a string light forest or whatever it might be, we want to hear it. But these are some things that are particularly powerful in transforming spaces. Playgrounds are always really good. We see a lot of playgrounds. Plazas are particularly great. That one's in South Bend. That's the Fogley Plaza project. The playground is in Oakland City. And then this farmer's market is an indoor winters farmer's market in Richmond, Indiana. So those are just some ideas of what kind of projects we look like. These again are just questions to get you thinking. Okay, so you know the requirements of the program, but start in your community. Look for these areas that are particularly like drab and boring and not fun. What can they be, right? Do you need more trees? Do you need a space for people to gather? Pay attention to those challenge opportunities. If you've got a complainer or naysayer who always just tells you like, I don't like this thing, maybe sit them down and be like, let's talk about how we fix it together. Because those naysayers can really hinder your success, but they also, if given them the opportunity, can really be part of that success too. So the crowdfunding, well, let's dive into what this is. So crowdfunding is just asking a large group of people to donate, particularly investing in a short constrained time frame. So when we're thinking about crowdfunding, it can feel overwhelming. Like the internet is a scary, wild place. It can be overwhelming, but it's no different than traditional fundraising. It's just a better way to reach folks, and it allows for an easy way to process donations. And you can create a lot of energy and momentum by starting the conversation online and then in person, engaging with your donors in a more dynamic way. The timeline, I think, is important here. Creating Places allows us to review projects on a rolling basis, so we don't have hard, fast grant deadlines. And that's because crowdfunding has a pretty strict timeline. We want you to run your campaign for 30 to 60 days. So you need to do some prep work in order for those 30 to 60 days to be the most valuable. And we want you to do it at a time that makes sense for what you're doing, your existing fundraising, and to make sure your project can be completed in a year. So we want a few days to be potentially a few weeks to make sure your page is aligned. We at Patronicity, you're going to go to our website, you're going to start a page, and then I'm your coach. I'm going to guide you through the process so you don't have to navigate it alone. I'm going to give you feedback about the page that you're building on our crowdfunding platform. The page serves as the application for the grant, which is part of the revolutionary part about this program, so that you're not having, we're going to ask for tertiary documents. We want a budget and some other elements, but we want this to expedite the granting process because the community, again, is a review committee. IHCDA will give you conditional approval before you launch your campaign. This is good in a couple of regards. One, you can utilize IHCDA's name, and we'll get a quote from the Lieutenant Governor's office to announce your campaign, which can be really impactful. And they use our platform for review. So we only need up to 3 business days. Typically, IHCDA can give you approval within sometimes 24 hours, maybe within minutes, if they're all online at the same time and reviewing on the platform. And then we do need some time to get that press release out, and then you'll run your campaign, 30 to 60 days. 60 days can be a really long time. So if you're going for the max amount, which is that $50,000, I would probably recommend 60 to give yourself time, but we've seen a lot of success from 30, 40 day, 45-day campaigns as well. So the budget, I mean, we all have to kind of break this down. This is a budget we directly got from the folks in Bedford. This is the Bedford Community Garden Project. I want to point out something. Our program, because of the timeline, sometimes is considered gap funding because you might already have a large number of, might have dollars in place. Especially if your project exceeds our program limit, which is basically $100,000. So we recommend identifying any of your existing funding sources. And if you see on the left here, I've broken down the folks in Bedford knew they had 20 grand from their Parks and Rec, their Bedford Urban Enterprise, we're going to give them 65K. And they knew they would have a gap of about $50,000. So they would crowdfund their goal online would be $25,000, and then IHCDA would provide the match. And so that got them to their total, which is 135. And as you can see, they, when they submitted, this is their final budget, they submitted the different amounts, giving themselves about 10 to 20% overage here in what they could do with the funds. It's really important to be this explicit with your budget, primarily because you can tie some of these directly to giving levels, which is a key function of crowdfunding that I'll go into, because folks want to actually fund the elements of your project, not just the overall project. So I'll share those in a minute. I'm going to pause really quick for questions. Any questions yet? Okay. Okay. So now that you have a good sense, these are just some tips about your budget. How much money do you need to actually complete it? And give yourself some space. Be explicit, like I said, with those expenses. And then for the projects that exceed our limit, you'll want to identify where you're getting those other funds from. Also, you can start to create a buzz in your community. Start talking to folks before you're ready to run a campaign about the idea that you're going to be asking them for money, right? It takes a couple of different times to be asked for money before people actually give. And so start to have a conversation, say, hey, we have this grant match program that exists in Indiana. We're thinking about applying. Is this something you would give to? So, and we also recommend targeting large donors first. Again, we share some strategies about best practices. So we'll dive into that. We help you dive into that. You don't have to navigate that on your own. This image here is from the Oki Alley project and in Columbia City. And they actually, I love this story because they were able to tap into their local history and culture. They had Shinzu Oki was the first fermented soy factory in the US. And he was local in Columbia City, and they wanted to honor his legacy with a beautiful mural. And this alleyway is now completely activated. And they did so by tapping into their local history and culture, which is one of our favorite elements of creating places in this program. Okay, so here's the part that can feel intimidating, but it's really not. So our page serves as the application. So a lot of it is just inputting information. These are some things that you'll want to have in mind when you're building your page. You want something fun and catchy to draw folks' attention. And in particular, keeping it short and brief is always a best practice. And so a lot of times I think people can get caught up in trying to explain everything in a tagline, but you need something really quick, like River Ramble. Like that's easy to understand, and it's just a few words. And then we have a catchy tagline that can be a little bit of a descriptor there. You want to set an attainable goal. It's really important to feel comfortable and confident that you're going to hit your goal. That's particularly helpful. And when you're talking to your different community members to get support, it's so important to talk about the donation as part of a matching program, because this would basically double the amount that's possible. So that's what's really powerful, is when people know that, hey, I might have given $100, but if we meet this goal, they're going to get another 100 from IHCDA. And then when you're telling a story, images tend to they get to the point a lot quicker, right? So we do want you to have images. We want you to have renderings. We even want, they don't have to be the super sexiest renderings ever. But it's really important that people have a vision for what you're creating. A lot of people just aren't creative. They just don't see it. So when you say things like a plaza at the South Bend, I don't know what that looks like. Well, this is an example of what a plaza could look like. You can even find images from, other places that you like, and you can cite that source and say, this is a space in, Florida that is something that we want to create here. One of my favorite exchanges, and I use this a lot, because when you take a before image of the space, which is we is part of the grant requirement, we want to see the before and after. When you take a picture of the before, we want it to look gnarly, right? You need people to be like, oh, wow, we really need the money to make this place look better. And my favorite is there's a porta potty at the river ramble. And I was like, no, take a picture of the porta potty. I would gladly give a lot of money if I knew they were creating public restrooms so I would not have to go in a porta potty. But we can help you create that narrative. Having a before and a rendering is super important. And then over here to the right are our giving levels. We want people to get something for what they give you, but we don't want that to be an administrative nightmare. And a lot of times it can be. So for smaller giving levels, sometimes it's an invitation to the opening of the space. Sometimes it's just a shout out on your website or listing. So they don't all have to be administrative nightmares. When people pick like plaques or bricks, sometimes chasing down what people want to say on their bricks can be a little stressful. So again, a couple of things to keep in mind when you're fundraising. We at Patronicity can't do the fundraising for you. You know your space and your folks better than we do. And so it's really up to you to identify a team. You can do it by yourself, but it's harder to do crowdfunding without the crowd. So you want to engage as many people as possible, utilize their social capital, their networks, and have them be willing to share with their friends and family. Because in trust-based philanthropy, which is sort of what this is, you have to trust someone in order to get them to give you money. And so leveraging those relationships is important. Again, 30 to 60 days. Those incentives, those giving levels are great incentives, as well as pushing the match, having a tight deadline and pushing that deadline with your campaign window. And then one rule we have is a single donor can't give more than 35% of your goal, or $10,000 at the $50,000 match level, which is the highest. And the reason for that is not to be annoying, but the spirit of the grant is to get your community's financial support. And so you could, in theory, grab 2 friends to give you 25,000. I'd like some of those friends. And, but that would disqualify you for the grant, because we want to see that your community supports you and is behind you. We can work with you if, for example, you're trying to raise a large amount of money and you have somebody that just comes and says, we'll give you the full goal amount. We'll be like, well, you might not get the grant match. Can you only count a portion of that, or that $10,000, and then keep fundraising, and then you can do even more. So we can help you do a stretch goal and isolate ways to grow the project, or even once you've exceeded your goal amount on our platform, you can continue to fundraise. So we've had projects whose goal was 50, they got a $50,000 match from IHCDA, but they raised over $100,000. So they got an additional $50,000. So once you raise above and beyond that goal, you can use those funds any way you like, because they're not exactly part of the grant. So you can make a lot of really fun and interesting things happen. Okay, so one of the challenges folks have, and again, this is just designed to get folks thinking, is can you identify those key stakeholders? Who are the people in your community who are going to be part of your team? Who are going to be the people who are going to share? Who are your donors? And then the simplest thing to do before you start a crowdfunding page is use the format, which is exactly how our page is set up, to create your narrative. So what is the project? Why is it important? What's the impact statement? And then how people can help. That's it. We don't need like flowery language that was like, on a hot August day. No. On the internet, people don't have time. They want to cut to the chase. These over here to the right are just some projects we've done. This is a trail project. This is Mishawaka. I feel like I'm heavy-handed on the northwest part of the state in this presentation. And then the beautiful sculptures at the MLK monument in Indianapolis. So again, just getting, you can take these questions, write them down, or when I share it, you can just meet with your team and start discussing what that looks like or what it means. Again, the Mishawaka project, this is kind of the case study. This is what I'm going to wrap things up with, because I'm sure we want to hear from the people who are actually doing the work. But this project I love because it's a community educational greenhouse. So they partner with the local high school's landscaping club. I feel dynamically connected to these young people now, but they saw a need to transform the space into a greenhouse. And the outcomes of this project have been really phenomenal. First, you see Grandma Barker's garden. This space was actually originally part of a farm, and it's actually the location of Grandma Barker's garden. And so they're trying to pay homage to the history of the space, but they didn't actually know that until the campaign, and someone found out about the campaign and said, hey, that's the spot where my grandma had her garden. And so what's pretty I loved about this story is that their Grandma Barker's, I think, son or grandson donated a large amount of money to the project to honor his grandma, and that it kind of, the space is continuing to honor that legacy. But these young people took part in the project, and young people are powerful, and you'll be you could be really surprised at what they do. But they were in charge of raising the money and building the campaign page. They tend, young people are pretty tech savvy, so they had no problems doing that. And then the Mishawaka Parks and Rec team really had them go out and ask people for money. And the story of impact that I love here is that a lot of these young people have been affected by this long term. One of them is looking to create a business where they could use hydroponics, because they learned about hydroponics and wanted to invest in a business. One student changed their major. Another student got in to college because they used this project as an example on their college essay. So even if the idea that you have is just a garden or a green space or just a bog or a river ramble, you actually don't know the ripple effect that these projects could have. And for us, creating places is just taking what's special in your community and enhancing it, sharing it, and getting other people to invest and share and enhance the space. So that's creating places. And I think Bonnie and Evie are going to do an even better job of explaining their efforts.
Thank you so much, Bridget. That was really fantastic and helpful. And you're an amazing coach. So, which I think Bonnie and Evie will both share that. Since Julie asked where the River Ramble is located, Evie, maybe you would tell us about your project and experiences with Patronicity.
Okay, great. I will do that. As Andrea mentioned, I retired from St. Joseph County Parks, worked there 42 years, and the last 16 as director, but my background was as a naturalist. Julie just posted a question, Bridget. Do you want to answer that one real quick before I go on?
Yeah, I'll link to it. So on our page, we actually have a map of all of the projects around the state. So you can just hover over and click them. So I'll drop it in.
Awesome. Thanks. The other aspect is I also serve on the board of directors for the Shirley Hines Land Trust. So land trusts are near and dear to my heart. And I mention that because while the project, the River Ramble, might not be something that translates to a land trust, certainly the process that Bridget has outlined does for a crowdfunding. So let me share my screen here and we'll get going. St. Joseph County Parks is in St. Joseph County, as you might imagine, and specifically in South Bend is where this particular park is located. So let me get started here. The River Ramble is a 1.5 acre natural playscape, and all of the play components are themed on the St. Joseph River. Bridget alluded to the fact that it's basically adjacent to the St. Joseph River. So we did theme the project. And these are some of the completion photos that you can see here. It ended up being about a $750,000 project, which did include some funds for an endowment so that we could repair things as they broke or update things as needed. And when I first contacted Bridget, we were guesstimating that we had about 150,000 to go, and we had been fundraising. with major donors. And you can see in the blue there some community grants that we'd already received to kind of get us closer to that $750,000 goal. As Bridget mentioned, the IHCDA Creating Places grant is perfect as gap funding. And we were really looking for a way that we could engage the community and folks who might want to contribute but couldn't do $5,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 or $75,000. We opted to go for 50 days, and we kind of used a little tagline that we wanted to raise 50K in 50 days. And that was kind of a nice, short, sweet little tagline that we used on lots of our promotion. We contacted Bridget several months before we were even considering launching, because again, we had some fundraising already in the works, and we wanted some time to encourage folks to be thinking about this matching opportunity that would come up in the fall for us. As Bridget mentioned, one of the great things about this grant, the process is really quick, and the way that you fill out the web page that you build out is so easy. Bridget does an amazing job. When we filled out our application, she made some suggestions, wording changes, etc. But it's pretty much a template format and walks you through step by step. So you can see this is how it's set up. You can see up here in the red circle, we opted to do an all or nothing grant. And you can decide that if you want to do, we'll take any money, even if we don't meet our goal, we'll take all the money. We won't get the match, but we'll take whatever's raised. We upped the ante a little bit on the fact that we said, you know what? We're going to tell the community if we don't raise 50K from the community, we won't get anything. And so that's a choice that you can make. Every community, every project is probably different. Here's the famous photo of the before, which was part of our, the way that we built out our page. And Bridget, as she mentioned, said, oh, you got to take a picture of that porta-john, which was not making sense in my mind. Like, why would I show this ugly porta-john? But you can see this was the space. It was basically space that was being mowed, had a porta-john. It's adjacent to a traditional playground, and people desperately wanted some other way to use a restroom, change diapers, all kinds of things. So that's the famous pre-construction photo, which is required. And we were lucky because we had been doing some fundraising already. We already had a great conceptual design that we could plug right into the website. We used it for other things as well, but basically this got plugged into the website too. You can see the space, and then all of these components, many of which got sponsored, some by individuals and some by businesses and corporations. As Bridget mentioned, photos are king on the internet, and for any kind of crowdfunding, they're even more significant. So we were able to find great photos from other places that had natural playscapes that allowed us to use their photos. And then also message points, outdoor play means happy, healthy kids. Your gift will connect kids with nature. All of that was incorporated in that webpage. The other thing that was fun, and I know Shirley Hines Land Trust did this as well, but as we were building out our giving or our gift levels, we went from basically $25, as you can see here, all the way up to $10,000, which was the max. And all of those gift levels, as we crafted them, we decided we would theme on the St. Joseph River. Anything that was related to rivers, kind of we scoped out and said, yeah, that'll be a good name for a gift level. So great blue heron and bald eagle, greater red horse, which is a really rare fish in the St. Joseph River. We were able to even give a little educational moment there about that uncommon fish in our area. This is how that played out in terms of the donor recognition sign, which is on the backside of the entrance arch, with all of the giving levels that we tagged to say, if you give at such and such a level, basically the kingfisher and up, you'll also get recognition on our donor sign. So how did we promote all of the opportunities for folks to give through this Patronicity campaign? This is the list. We had a big sign out at the site that people could see, which got a lot of coverage because it's a busy park and adjacent to an existing playground. And then many of these other things I'm sure most of you use in a variety of fundraising. We even had flyers on our park kiosks and in our park restrooms. I always joke, perfect place, captivity. If you've got a restroom and any of your facilities, if you can put a flyer in there, you've got a captive audience. So that worked out well for us. We had the TV news station came out, we had newspaper stories, etc., which some of which we obviously started before the launch of the campaign, and some continued during the 50 days that we had the campaign running. One of the great things about any crowdfunding opportunity is that you will hopefully create a great social buzz in your area with residents, people on your various social media platforms. As we were into the campaign, we thanked people. That was part of our gift giving at certain levels. We named people, we tagged people, we celebrated certain milestones, we posted pictures, and always, of course, had the link where people could go ahead and make their gift, if they hadn't already. People shared it, people that I had specifically asked, Park Foundation members, Park Board members, staff members, please share this on your own platforms that you are part of in social media. And of course, that even continued at the end when we could celebrate with a little video of kids saying thank you for the project. And we even thanked donors as individual components got built out, which took several months because we were in the midst of COVID and we had all kinds of supply chain issues. But that's a whole other story. Our timing, October 1st through November 21st, again, 50K in 50 days. We knew going into this that it might impact the Park Foundation's end of year appeal, which, as most folks do, comes out, November, sometimes December. We decided to go ahead and do an annual appeal. It was a nice way to celebrate what ended up being the success of the River Ramble crowdfunding project through Patronicity and IHDA. And we were surprised we had barely a slight decrease in our overall annual campaign. So again, every community is different, every donor base is different, but that's how it played out for us. Another thing I thought I would share is we were really strategic. There's an opportunity for you to plug in offline donations into the Patronicity project. This is the graph from the financials of our River Ramble project showing basically where I plugged in those offline contributions. A couple of things to note here, that this one right here, this big $10,000 gift, we had already talked to this donor. She made a significant gift, and of course we couldn't plug it all in. It would have capped us out over the threshold. But we knew that in the middle of our time period, there would probably be a lull in online giving from the community. So we asked her specifically before the campaign started, could we drop in your 10K and can we celebrate it? And can we do a little story about you and your history in the newspaper, etc. And that worked out really well. We were able to celebrate her very large gift. And you can see other ones too. Part of the strategy of this program is thinking about how you might want to and when you might want to drop in some offline gifts. Keep in mind that the Patronicity platform does charge fees for anything that gets dropped in to that Patronicity platform. So we were really strategic about what got dropped in when. A couple of fun facts that might be useful for you. 86% of all the people on our program that donated online covered the fees for their donation. That was great because it meant it reduced our overall fees that had to come out of anything that we raised. The other great success is the majority of the people that donated online were at the level of $100 or less. That's what we wanted. We wanted a way for people in the community to contribute at whatever level they were comfortable with. And another thing that you'll probably know instinctively, a big chunk of the donations come in the last 2 days. So we knew that would happen. And if something didn't play out with the online contributions, we had either offline contributions or donors in the background that said, yep, we will drop in money just to make sure that you make the goal. We basically knew we were going to make the goal with or without, getting folks involved, quite frankly, at $100 or less. But we really wanted the social buzz and the buy-in from the community on this project. At the end of the project, your website does give you this great information, all the breakdown, how much that Patronicity and IHCDA is going to transfer to you, how many online, how many offline donors you had, your fees, etc. And the nice thing is you can access, like I just accessed this like last night again to kind of look at it. So your access to the site continues even after your program has closed out if you log in with your login information as the one who set up the fundraising opportunity. Here, by the way, is what replaced in this 1.5 acres. Here's what replaced the Porta-John. It's a really cool composting toilet, which had great message information about how water quality can be protected through the wise use of handling waste and how you can compost waste. So I always like to show that because Bridget was a big advocate for that whole photo. And again, we were very successful. The process was easy. Bridget is a fantastic coach, teaches you everything you need to know with all kinds of pointers. So again, you can see we made that $50,000 goal, got lots of folks involved, and the community was really ecstatic to be a part of it. So we certainly thank IHCDA and Patronicity. And I guess with that, I guess we can hand it off back to Andrea, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Evie. So Evie and Bridget are both really amazing resources as if you do end up participating in this program. And I did want to comment when Bridget was going through the timeline, it is really incredible how quickly they get back to you, the response. And very, very intuitive program. So thank you, Evie, for sharing that. And Bonnie Hawksworth is going to share a little bit about Shirley Hines Land Trust Leidig Bog Boardwalk project, also in St. Joseph County.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, Evie's so comprehensive. And I will say that Evie's strategy really informed what we did. And also all of this was done in collaboration with Andrea when she was on staff here. So Andrea, feel free to add anything that you think I might have left out. So Shirley Hines Land Trust protected one of the last remaining sphagnum bog habitats in Indiana at Leidig Bog Nature Preserve, which is a state dedicated nature preserve, 178 acres in total, featuring 65 acres of a variety of wetlands. So it's a really special place. It's got a bunch of other habitats there too. And overall, what we want to do is improve public access amenities and better engage the community. So this was a perfect opportunity. So Leidig Bog is one of our target sites. So the master plan there includes improved access, overall signage, an open air 30 by 60 foot pavilion, which has been installed, a restroom facility, there's a theme here, right? And ADA accessibility from the parking lot all the way to the bog. So it's a pretty exciting project. So at the time of our IHCDA application, we had raised approximately $500,000 of the $600,000 total needed. So it was really like that final stretch. And we were really interested in a outward facing community engagement campaign. So that $100,000 would be needed to fully realize what would be a specially designed wick craft boardwalk, connecting visitors to this rare and unique habitat. So we were really excited. So what we did timing wise, we did it in 1 month. We felt like we just wanted to be really, really tight and keep that energy going. And also we wanted to not negatively impact our spring fundraising effort, which is kind of going on at the same time, but really ramps up in April. So we fundraised from March 1st of 2021 through March 31st. Really important, we identified key early supporters. Evie touched on this too, and secured several commitments that we knew we could achieve the goal, but also wanted to engage a new audience as well. So at the start of the campaign, we had about $30,000 secured and wanted to get the rest of it from the public. So we had been cultivating donors in St. Joseph County in the South Bend area since our expansion there with the purchase of this property in 2016. So there's a lot of legwork that we did to try to build that donor base. So I guess what I'll do now is share my screen. Just a moment here. Okay, so this is our page. Again, very easy to develop. I love the fact that the website, which you need anyway, is the application. And so we at Shirley Hines just collaborated on all of the various materials that we had to try to build out those elements. So we incorporated a little video, which I'm going to show you right now. Featuring someone we all know and love there. So I'm going to scroll down the left side and then we'll go back and look at the giving levels. So we incorporated pictures of this very special resource, just little tidbits of information to set the stage. A rendering, as we talked about, is really important. Our boardwalk won't look exactly this way, but it gives people a sense for what we're trying to achieve. And then some of the special plants that can be found there. Which really are really interesting plants. So we felt like that was important. And then people just out enjoying the preserve. So we did incorporate giving levels as well, thanks to guidance from Evie. What we did, same kind of thing as we incorporated fun facts. So we started at $25. So sphagnum moss is really cool. It's our 40-year anniversary this year, so we had a 40-year anniversary giving level. And then some of the other special features, cranberry, critters that live there, that sort of thing. So let's see, what else? I think maybe I'll stop sharing because you get a sense there of what the website looked like. So we had a lot of fun building that. And then by the end of March, we exceeded our goal and raised $136,500 total. So that was super exciting. And so right now we are halfway through the construction of the boardwalk. So just about to finish the project and see its realization, which is great. This opportunity, though, we are so thankful for it because it enabled us to really spread our reach and build our base of support with not just current donors that we've been cultivating, but multiple new donors that we hope will continue supporting the organization. And so I think that's the real goal, and we feel very successful in that.
And one thing I did want to mention that was really great, Evie talked about being able to access your page. When Shirley Hines Land Trust did theirs, it brought in, as Bonnie mentioned, quite a few new folks to the project. So you have access to the names of the givers, their email addresses, their addresses, so that you can continue to not only give them updates as the project progresses, but also those are folks that you can then really bring into other aspects of your work.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because we've added some additional functionality to our platform, especially during COVID. We found that people may not have the financial situation to give even at a smaller donor level. So we've actually added a volunteer button. So campaigns can just collect a list of names for people who might want to volunteer. And that donor information is yours in perpetuity. You can also export it and put it to any other CRM or customer management software or any other spreadsheets that you might already have too. That's an important thing to figure out, to point out. Thank you.
And then one more thing, since Evie mentioned it, the timing with other campaigns that you might have going on. So Bonnie, you mentioned that the spring benefit was just around the corner. Were there any impacts to that, or do you think it helped just build greater awareness?
Yeah, I mean, really building the awareness, I think of course, we really appreciated the opportunity to raise the funds, but the awareness building, we had 160 donors to that campaign, which was really amazing. And there was a slight overlap with the spring benefit, but we exceeded our spring benefit goal. So like the strategy just worked out perfectly timing wise. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we would consider in the future for other projects.
Wonderful. Were there any questions, Gus, Julie, Bridget, for anyone?
I was curious how many projects, how long has this been going on, and how many projects on average do they, and funding amount do they give away each year? Maybe I missed that, Bridget, in your presentation, and I apologize if you said it.
Yeah, no, I didn't answer those questions, so I'm happy to do that. So we have seen as low as 24 projects a year to over 35. So we average about 29 projects per year. The program started in 2016, but IHCDA just allocates $1 million each year, and we just run until we run out of funds where the program continues. And so usually in October or November, we're re-upping for the next year. So our funds will roll over to the next year, which is also really great from a granting purposes. So IHCDA has a lot of flexibility. So we see a lot of folks go for the full 50, but we've been able to fund smaller projects. So at $10,000 or $15,000, those lighter, quicker, cheaper kind of projects. So as long as we have funds, we can manage projects. We can run campaigns. When it comes to the review of that process, we have folks that maybe will come to us, they came to us in 2013 and then they're not ready yet. So maybe they came back in actually 2016 to run a campaign. It's not like a typical grant where it's like you have the short time frame and you have to have everything in all at once. We can work with you. We've had people start pages and then end up doing something completely different. And then the other thing I want to mention, sort of in that vein, is that you can come back to us for funding. So our program is not just a one and done. So we've had communities around the state come back to us almost every year. Now we'll ask you to consider, you can't start another campaign till your project's done. And we'd ask you to really consider your donor base, right? So if you went for $50,000, you don't want to go to $50,000 again in the very next year because you might have exhausted that donor base. But this is a development program that you can kind of turn to on a regular basis too for different kinds of projects. So if you have, for example, like a larger scale project like the River Ramble, if Evie just wanted to do the shelter to get started, that could be an option too.
Thanks.
Hey, Bridget, I had a question that somebody asked me that you can probably answer. As you are reviewing potential projects, do you ever consider that maybe there's another project in the community that's going to overlap going on at the same time? How does that play out?
Yeah, we actually watch for that because we don't want there to be two campaigns that are kind of vying for the same donor base. A couple of times this has happened in one community. There was some local conflict, and we recommended they work together to decide who would run first. And the person who had ran the campaign first was unsuccessful because the other project had already created a public narrative out there. So we, from IHCDA's perspective and Patronicity's, we want whatever is going to ensure the project is successful. So that's why we say this is your local decision that your teams need to decide, because you're reaching out to the same kind of networks. But we just would ask that people consider that, because IHCDA wants you to be successful. This program has a 97% success rate. So we've only had a few projects fail, and that project was only that was one that failed because they already had somebody out there talking about raising money. In large communities like in Columbus, I'll give you a good example. There was a Philharmonic campaign that was started a month or so before a campaign on the skate park. So those audiences were particularly different, and their donor bases were particularly different, and Columbus's size made it so that they weren't kind of overlapping, but we do consider that a lot. And we also consider, like, for example, you know, the Leidick Bog project and the River Ramble, there had been enough time between when you had fundraised. And also, sometimes it's actually good that there is like sort of a donor base or a connection that already exists, because you can sort of tap into those donors, especially if you have someone like you that's been on both boards and can help navigate or facilitate or connect with those same donor networks for different kinds of projects. That's probably more detailed than you needed, but I thought it was helpful to understand that, like, we know that sometimes communities aren't always working together or collaboratively. So we want to push people to do that whenever they can. But ultimately, we can't tell you absolutely no, but we'll ask you to stagger it.
Awesome. Any final questions, comments?
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention, because fees is always sometimes a hard conversation to have with folks, because they're like, oh no, fees. I do want to share that we at Patronicity are different than a typical business. We have a triple bottom line, so which means we care about people and the environment first, which means unfortunately I probably don't make as much as I would on the open market. But that being said, the fees are really designed not to be difficult. So if, for example, you see the bulk of your donations coming offline, we would work with you to potentially negotiate those fees, because we want you to be successful. And like Evie said, like, we see her campaign was pretty high, 86%. We see the average campaign only will get 80% of those fees covered. So that was a little higher. And we have a 3% credit card processing fee that goes directly through our credit card processors at Stripe. Stripe keeps that data on file. We don't actually have access to your donor credit cards, which is an element of safety. And then the other thing, we don't reach out to your donors in any format unless you would like us to follow up if there's a troubleshooting question. And then the other thing to kind of keep in mind with those fees is that additional 5% fee. So it's a total of 8%, but that goes to our developers. And on average, since we see so many donors cover the fees, what sounds like 8% actually ends up on most campaigns being 2.5 to 4.5%, which is significantly less than any crowdfunding platform. And we provide technical assistance and project coaching. So we think it's a good bang for the buck, but wanted to make sure that, to be fully transparent about what we do and how we serve you, and also can pay our bills.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Bridget, Evie, and Bonnie, for joining us today. I think this is really helpful for everyone on the call, and I do know that there are some other folks who had hoped to join us, so I will make sure to get this out to everyone. And just because it's such an amazing program, a great resource for our state. And I think that more of our land trusts, just have amazing projects that would fall within this. So thank you so much for today. And just for your time.
Thank you so much. We have funding in 2022, so let me know whenever anyone's ready.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a
luck,
nice
Jess and
holiday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.